I'm doing a horror movie, that being Hush. So, this movie is definitely a very underrated horror movie that I've seen. It used to be on Netflix, but they removed it for some reason, and it wasn't on streaming for a long time. But now I was able to find it on Peacock, and it's on Tubi. So I'm glad they found a way to put the movie and keep it on streaming at least, and we can watch it for free. But this movie is about a deaf girl who has to fight for her life against an intruder who is trying to murder her in her house. So I like how this movie is just straightforward into the action. Like, there's not too much backstory. They do set some things up for our protagonist, but this movie is just straight up she has to fight for her life against the intruder, and he wears like a scary doll looking mask, and the way he tries to get into the house is like crazy because he is like super smart, and also she's super smart, so she has to come up with various strategies to take him out. But the one thing we do know about the girl is she basically lost her hearing when she was very young, and she basically had to spend her whole life without having being able to hear anybody, has to use sign language. And she's also an author, and she wrote her own book, and her friend comes over to show her that she finished the book, but after she leaves, she later gets murdered by the intruder, but she doesn't find out till later, our protagonist, that she's basically targeted by this random intruder. But she almost catches him when being on a phone with another friend, and the main thing that does drive her to figure it out is when she gets a text message of her in her house, and she is wondering what is going on, and then she sees the man just standing in front of her deck door, and it's actually scary if you really think about it, because just imagine if you're home alone and then you see some intruder trying to sneak into your house, and they almost barely get into the house just like that. But she does write on the wall to communicate with the man, but once he does take off his mask, we just see it's just a regular dude. Well, not really, he's a psychopath, and I think it's suggested that he killed other people. And since he's a straight up serial killer, since he's literally got a crossbow, he's kind of like, I don't know, he's not as good as Hawkeye or Green Arrow. I'm pretty sure they'd kick his ass. But I feel so bad for the protagonist's friend. Her name is Maddie, by the way, the protagonist. She loses her friend Sarah, who gets brutally murdered. Like I said, she just gets stabbed and hacked, and it's sadder that she couldn't even get in through the door because Maddie's deaf. But basically the man's able to cut the power, and it leads to her being in the house all by herself. Well, she's always been by herself, but she basically has no internet, no lights, and so she can't even call the cops. But she ends up sneaking somewhere into the house. She's able to find some strategies, but the main disturbing thing the man does, he literally grabs the body of Sarah and like taps the window, waving with her dead body, and it's just like disturbing. It's just straight up like utter disturbing stuff serial killers do. But Maddie's able to grab her friend's phone, and she tries to call the cops, but of course she has to go back into the house, and she actually crushes the man's fingers. It's definitely brutal. Once we see the man get what he deserves, you just feel the action when he does get hurt. But later in the movie, Maddie is visited by Sarah's boyfriend. I forget his name, but he tries to investigate what's going on. But this is where the man pretends to be a cop, and he's able to trick the man until he stabs him through the neck, and we get this brutal scene where his neck gets slashed and blood just starts spitting out of his neck. And it's just like, ooh. And he tries to tackle the man. He almost chokes him to death, but he ends up dying on the scene. But of course, during the fight, Maddie was basically able to find a way to get the man's crossbow after, I think, distracting him with a few strategies. She even, like, hides under the deck for a little bit. And she basically has to use she, like, can't hear anything. She has to imagine various scenarios that could work. But, when she tries to get back into the house, she ends up getting, I think her hand gets later crushed, but she actually gets shot by an arrow when trying to get back in, but she has to find a way to clean the wound. But when she does get the crossbow, she's able to actually save her pet cat, and when the man ends up seeing the cat, he actually almost kills the cat, and it's just like animal cruelty right there. But Maddie shoots him, and he gets what he deserves. But we get this wild confrontation where she decides to write her final piece of her book, where she describes the man, and she even writes in her own blood of the "Do it, you coward." But I love that scene. It's badass. And the man's able to basically just have enough. He just grabs a crowbar and just starts smashing through the door. And she does her best to finish the story. But she ends up hiding for a little bit. And she does have a knife, finally. And the man is able to sneak up behind her. But of course, she's able to feel his breath, even though she's deaf. She ends up stabbing the man through the leg. Honestly, she should have went for the neck, but I'll get to that in a bit. But basically, she's able to find a way to get back into the main kitchen, but she almost gets taken down. But she's able to grab bee spray, and that's been lying around, and she sprays the man in the face, causing him to get dizzy. But she also grabs like a fire alarm, which was used later when she was trying to make dinner earlier. But it ends up causing the man to fall down. But he ends up getting on top of her, and he ends up choking her to death. And she actually reflects on her life, in which I assume they're photos from the actress's actual real life. But she ends up grabbing a screw that was on the floor during the fight, and she's able to just slash him through the neck, causing him to die. And yeah, that scene was definitely brutal. But the movie ends with her calling the cops, and we get scenes of the bodies of the people who died in this movie. And yeah, the fate of Maddie is unknown. But we assume the cops helped her up. But that's Hush. This movie was definitely really good. I had a few nitpicks. There was this one scene where she was talking to some guy that was kind of trying to make a move on her, but she didn't really want to recuperate. I didn't really understand why that storyline wasn't really concluded. And I wish the man didn't take his mask off throughout the whole movie, because this movie's highly promoted with the man's mask, but he spends the whole movie without it. So like, I don't know, he didn't seem as intimidating without the mask in the whole movie. That's my little nitpick. But I think this movie's really good. It's just a perfect movie to watch in the dark on Halloween. Like, it's just that simple movie you can watch. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Scream, like when you fight Ghostface in the house, like in the opening scene of Scream. I got some vibes from that. But I like how this movie is like raising awareness for people who are deaf. It kind of reminded me of Echo, that character, Maya Lopez, who the actress Aquacock is also deaf in real life. So I got some vibes from that. But overall, Hush was definitely a good movie for sure. I don't know what the next horror movie I should review, since there's only a few weeks left of Halloween. I don't know if I'll just review a bunch of Halloween specials, but we'll wait and see. So I'll give this movie definitely an 8 out of 10 for sure. So yeah, be on the lookout for my reviews. So anyway, thanks for watching.